Hi guys, it's Karen with Love Your Land, and it is the promised drip line video that I'm not really ready for, but anyway, we're gonna just do it. So I wanted to talk to you about the benefits, the reasons why to even take the time to set up a drip system, first and foremost, because it's a little work, and it's also it's not free. It costs a little money. It's a little bit of an investment, but it's totally worth it if you can swing it. The main benefit in my book is water conservation. I want to water my plants, but I don't need to water weeds. The weeds are going to get enough just from rain, so I'm not worried about worms and other things in other parts of the bed not having moisture. The soil is going to be moist enough all around. But when I water with a hose, this is a perfect example right here. So typically, I make little berms around my plants, and I water. And then as soon as I water, those berms kind of collapse a little on the edges. So every time I would water before I had a drip system, I was up to my elbows in mud because I'd have to come back, and as I'm watering, I'm reforming these berms around the plants, and the water's still running off into other directions, and the plant's not getting what it needs, and I'm watering a weed. So that's the number one major benefit in my book is water conservation. You're watering the plant, you're giving the plant what it needs. The other thing is with the drip system, as opposed to just blasting your plant with water, is there's no, if you're sprinklers, let's say, if it's landscaping and you use sprinklers, that can get carried away by wind. I know we turn the sprinklers off often when it's going to be windy because it's pointless. It just carries it away. It's a waste. It's not going to be affected by wind. It's not going to be affected by evaporation really, because the drip line actually sits right on the soil, right on the top of the soil, and it goes directly into the soil and waters your plant deeply, and that's what your plant needs. It's very consistent watering too. We have ours set up on a timer, which you're going to see in just a minute. So that's the other thing. The other benefit is if I only had like 3 plants, it would be no big deal. But I have a large garden. Any of you who've been here or have seen pictures of how big it is, it's really big, and it's a lot to water by hand. So I still have other areas that I water by hand, and I get that experience too. But for the main part of my garden, drip system is the only way to go. When sometimes, unfortunately, when it's time to water, I don't want to be honest with you. It's either I've gotten a late start in the day and it's too hot, and that's not good for your plants anyway, or I'm busy, or I'm gone, or God forbid I travel. I have to hire a neighbor kid to water for me, and that's not necessarily a good thing. So with a drip system, your plants get what they need. They're on a timer, so you can leave. You can go on vacation for a week, and other than having somebody pick your zucchinis, your garden's going to be fine. So those are the major benefits. There's others. There's lots of other benefits. By the way, there's other options too for a drip irrigation, or a micro irrigation as it's sometimes called. I've seen people use PVC pipe, and they just drill holes in them, and that's great. I like this drip system better with this hose and the lines that go to each plant, because the way I see it, it gives me more options later on, because I'm going to, you can't see, but behind you where the tomatoes are set up, that drip system was from last year. So my husband literally just took it out of the shed, plopped it in there, and kind of just rearranged things. And he may have needed to cut one piece a little longer, but probably not, because I'll show you when we do this, but I don't aim for a custom setup because this may not be the configuration of the plants in this spot next year, but I still want to be able to reach stuff. So in my book, this type of drip irrigation system is a much more flexible option, and it just allows me to, invest in it once, and it's going to last years and years. So, but before we get started on this, real quick, there's a part of this setup that I didn't do. My husband did it, and he's kind enough he's agreed to show us how to do that, because I didn't do it, so I don't really know how. He's explained it to me, but it'd be better if he explained it to you. So we're going to head over there to Keith right now, and he's going to give us the lowdown on the initial setup, and then we're going to come back over here, and I'm going to show you setting up the drip to each plant. Okay? Let's head over there.
Hi everybody, this is Keith from Love Your Land, and I'm going to show you where the drip system starts from. Now there's a couple different ways you can start this. You may have an existing drip system that you could tap into and use the your house planter timer in order to water your garden as well, if the timing's aligned correctly with what you're trying to water. But what we've done here is we had this hose bib near our garden beds, our raised beds. So we tapped into this, and we could manually operate it by turning the hose bib on and off, or we can automatically operate it with this easy to install, easy to program, and affordable, very affordable timer that's battery operated, so you don't have to plug it in. And this is our second year on the battery, and it still shows a full charge. So what this does is it hooks right into your hose bib. If you want to get a close-up, it's a small device. This device here that you see is only because my bib is low to the ground and I needed a little more space, but it does hook right in. And then that's the timer that you can easily program, easier than your home thermostat. Has several different options that you can that you can program into it. And then coming out of there, it's important that we reduce the pressure, because most home water pressure is too high for a drip system to handle. It's too much. So this little device is a pressure regulator, and what it does is it simply steps the pressure down from a higher pressure to a lower pressure, the pressure that the drip system is designed for. And now coming out of that, we just have a garden hose. That's all it is. And we're going to go over here now to the other end of the garden hose, and I'll show you where it hooks up to the actual drip system. So this is the drip pipe right here, and this device is so the garden hose hooked directly into the drip pipe, and it's very easy to install. Also, it just slips on to the black pipe you see here, the drip pipe, and then your garden hose screws right into it, just like that. So that's the beginning of it all, and that's going to give you a great start, and Karen's going to show you the rest of the system.
Pretty easy, right? Okay, so now we're over here, we're going to set up the drip, and I'm going to bring some things over to you, some tools and parts that you're going to need before you start, and you can't see them from here, I know that, so I'm going to show you this. Hang on just a second. First thing you're going to need is a punch. If you can see in here, if I can do this, can I see? Here we go. There's a little puncher guy in there, and this is literally gets squeezed together and punches a hole in your main drip feeding line. Okay. The next tool you're going to need is a drip line cutter. Again, it's an easy tool to use and it will save your hands. For the actual drip system itself, you're going to need straight barbed connectors. They look like this. These are 1/4 inch. You're going to need T barbed connectors. They look like this, again 1/4 inch. You're going to need the tubing connectors. This side is where the water comes out. This is where you hook it up to the actual hose or pipe, you know, drip line. And last but not least, micro tubing stakes. These are going to hold your tubing in place. Okay, let's get to it. Okay, so now that you've seen the tools and the little parts that you're going to need, I'm going to do this kind of quickly. I already did one here. As you can see, this little tubing drip system is feeding this plant and this plant, watering, I should say. So I'm going to put these parts here, and I'm going to put my gloves on. Highly recommend gloves. I'm not putting Band-Aids on this time, only because I'm only doing a couple just to show you guys real quick. But I would recommend Band-Aids underneath your gloves because you're going to be heating stuff up too, and that's how I ended up with blisters. So the first thing we're going to do is figure out, just eyeball sort of who we want to water. In this case, I want to water this plant and this plant. So the first thing you need to do is punch a hole in this pipe. This is sort of the backbone of your drip system. It feeds the actual drip that goes out to each plant, and it's fed by that main spigot over there in that system that Keith just showed us. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my punch. I'm going to figure out where this is going to punch, and I'm going to set it on there accordingly. So I want the hole to be here, so I'm going to set the punch like this. And this doesn't have to be exact spacing and stuff like that. You just need to have enough. So, wrong end. Oh dear, I may need to edit this. Okay, here we go. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to cut a piece to go from this hole out into the bed, and then I'm going to go from there. So we'll cut this off with this cutter that I told you about. Cuts off very nicely. We don't need you anymore. Now I'm going to take one of these straight barb connectors that I just showed you, and I'm going to heat this tubing up a little bit, because even though I've had this in the sun, it's really kind of hard, at least for my hands, my fingers, to get these on here, and especially after I've done like 47 plants. So I'm going to take a lighter and heat this up a little bit. Kids, if you're doing this yourself, my hat goes off to you for setting up a drip system. That's awesome, but have your parents help you with this part, okay? We don't want anybody lighting themselves on fire. Even adults, be careful. So I'm just going to heat up the bottom inch or so of this tubing as best I can in the wind. That's going to be good enough. And I'm going to take the straight barb connector and plug it right in. And you go up to, you'll see a stop there, a little ridge, and that's where you stop. Next, I'm going to take this line and I'm going to poke it right into this hole that I made. And it snaps in. It's usually pretty easy. Yep, heard that. Okay, and now I need 2 pieces of this drip to get to each plant, you know, 1 to each. So I'm going to cut it here, and then I'm going to cut this roughly in half. Okay, now I will tell you, well, I think I said it a minute ago in a different part of the video, but I don't try to make this custom. My husband was smart enough to point that out to me, because later on I may need, my configuration may not be just like this. I may need longer pieces or whatever. So I don't try to make it just fit, you know, just the distance to a plant. I go a little bit extra so that next year I can just take this and plop it in here, and it'll probably work out for whatever configuration I have next year. Okay, so the next thing I'm doing is I'm heated that up. Now I'm taking one of the T connectors that I showed you, and I'm hooking that up here, because of course this line is going to, we're going to add 2 little lines from this line to go to each plant. Next, I'm going to take one of these that I just cut. Where's the other one? There it is. I'm going to heat this up. You don't have to heat this up. This is just something that, whoops, a little too much, that my husband suggested I do over the weekend, and it saved me. It was so much easier to get these on than without. See, that just went right on. And next piece. I'm trying to do this as fast as possible, because I know long drawn out videos are a drag. So forgive me if I sound like I'm rushing. I am, for your sake. Okay, get that guy on there. And next we're going to need 2 of these guys. I only got 1 out, whoopsie. My husband's so organized. He has all these parts in a little tackle box. I love it. Again, you know, I showed you up close. There's one end you attach to, and then there's one end where the water actually comes out. Make sure you have that going in the right direction, obviously. So we're going to attach these. I don't need to, I found I didn't need to heat these up to put these connectors on, so I'm not. Whoopsie. And then your microtubing stakes, pop those on. I do it about there, because this curls, so I have flexibility on where I'm going to put it. Oopsie, wrong way. Put that there. Okay, and then take your stakes. Your stakes are going to hold your drip line in place where you want it, instead of it moving around with wind or whatever. So I'm going to place one couple inches out from the base of the plant there, and the same thing over here. Okay, whoops, that's not really good. So you'll go around this way. See how I could just go over wherever I want because I have enough tubing. Because I didn't try to make it too short. I think that fell out. It did. That happens. Because I was going too fast and I didn't connect it right. Okay, so this guy's going to go right about there. Last thing, I highly recommend, shocker, straw, because for the same reason as in the tomato beds, you're going to avoid soil splash when it rains. You know, the drip line is going to cut that way down for you with the watering part. But rain, there is no drip system for rain, so it's just going to fall out wherever. But when you put, the other reason to put straw down, besides the other things I already mentioned, is this is going to go on top of my drip line. And so that's going to actually reduce the amount of exposure to weather that my drip line is going to experience. And it's going to keep it intact longer. It's going to extend the life of the drip line because it's going to keep it cooler. So I'll do a better job of this once we're off camera, but you get the idea. As you're going around and putting your straw down for your plant's sake, you're also kind of covering up most of your drip line too, to extend the life of your equipment. So that's it. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask a question because we try to cover these things as best we can in videos, but I'm just telling you as I'm going. So there's bound to be questions that you're going to have based on your own garden or whatever. Ask your question either here on YouTube or go over to Facebook, the Love Your Land page, and ask your question, and I'll do my best to answer it. All right? Thanks for joining me. I appreciate it, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.